Great, so let's get started. So again, my name is Astrid Ochoa. I'm the Interim Executive Director of Future of California Elections. Thank you all for joining us and for being partners with us for now several years. So Future of California Elections is a network of election officials, good government reform advocates, and civil rights and civic engagement organizations. And we come together in a table to have conversations about how to modernize elections and expand participation. And we do this specifically through the lens of looking at election administration. And it's been wonderful to work with all of you over the years. Thank you for supporting our annual conference. And so as we think about this new work before us, implementation of the Voters' Choice Act, we wanted to create another space for collaboration. And so that is what today's conversation is about, is to share with you this new project that we are starting. But before I dive in, I think there's a lot of experts on the call, and I want to save time. So let me know by responding to this poll how familiar you are with the Voters' Choice Act, and that'll guide my presentation of how much I should deep dive into this conversation. Great, so we have a lot of experts on the call. So let me just jump ahead for folks just to see the big, broad overview details, since we do have some folks that are not as familiar with the details. Great. So the Voters' Choice Act became law in 2016. And it is to make voting more convenient and accessible. It will provide a brand new model of voting as an option for counties to adopt. And voters will be receiving a vote by mail ballot and will be able to return or cast that ballot by mail at a drop box location that is secure or at a vote center. And in 2018, 4 counties have identified that they will be using this new model of voting, and that's Napa, Nevada, Sacramento, and San Mateo. And in 2020, all counties statewide will have the option of voting. And what's really unique about the Voters' Choice Act is that it provides an opportunity for communities to engage and provide input into how elections are run in their own communities. The Voters' Choice Act also has a lot of potential for voter confusion because not all counties are participating in this. And so some people live in one county and work in another. And so we want to help reduce voter confusion and help with messaging and partner with all of you to really help inform voters and support the transition to the Voters' Choice Act. So our agenda today will be to share with you about our work, our project called Voters' Choice California. We're then going to do a little bit of a dive into the VCA, the Voters' Choice Act timeline and where we are, and we have Robin Orsini, President of the League of Women Voters of Napa County, joining us for a brief interview to share her experience right now in Napa County in implementation of the VCA. And then we're going to close with a conversation about what community members can do and share with you about a new grant opportunity. So that'll be our hour together, and I'll go ahead and jump into Q&As at the end of each section. Before I get started, I do want to introduce my colleagues. We have Rachel Sherman. She is our project coordinator at Future of California Elections and has been really involved in helping shape a lot of this project, and she is going to give us the overview right now of our website. Great. Go ahead, Rachel. Oh.
Great. Hi, everyone. So we're very excited to share this website with you. And if you are by a computer, that website is www.voterschoice.org. And on the screen on ReadyTalk, I'll just be sharing some screenshots of that website. But we do encourage you to visit the website after this webinar and browse around all the different resources that we have available online. And I also just want to start off by saying that our hope is to use the site as a public education tool. And a place really where everyone that's interested in implementing the Voters' Choice Act can share resources. And so we're happy to post links to materials that other organizations create. And on our calendar page, we really want to help spread the word about different events, deadlines, and other relevant information. So on this first slide is a snapshot of our homepage. And the first section I want to highlight is the one towards the left. It's called the California Voters' Choice Act tab. And here we have information about the VCA, including a one-page fact sheet that was developed in partnership with the Secretary of State's office. And here on this slide is a snapshot of that fact sheet. And also in this section, we have links to relevant research and information on the counties participating in 2018. There's also an FAQ section, and here's a snapshot of that. And this FAQ we developed in partnership with a county elections office, and it covers 25 common questions that range in topics from how the new voting process will work, when vote centers will be open, who can cast a ballot at a vote center. And then on the next section, that's called For Voters tab, there's a page that says Your County, and this is where we link to participating counties' elections website. There's also a page called Your Role, and this outlines various ways community members can get involved in the new voting process, such as serving on an advisory committee, participating in planning meetings, and offering feedback and comments to their county's elections administration office. And as we get closer to the 2018 elections, this section will include a number of public education materials and resources for voters, and we definitely encourage your contributions for that. On the next section, labeled Community Organizers and Leaders, this section outlines various ways community organizers can provide leadership, get involved, and information on applying for a grant, which we'll also speak about later on in this webinar. And right now we're currently in the process of creating several additional resources for community members, so stay tuned for that. And in the next section, labeled For Election Administrators, there's a tools page, and here's a snapshot of what that looks like on the slide. And on this tool page, we have various resources for election administrators, such as an adaptation of the FAQ to serve more as talking points for election officials. We also have a fact sheet, and we would like to note that we can customize a fact sheet for a county to include specific items such as a county's logo, website, contact information, or other specifics. There's also a legal compliance section, and this is where we outline all the statutory requirements for the Voters' Choice Act, and we also have compliance checklists that are available for each key component of the law. We also have a guide to public participation for election officials implementing the Voters' Choice Act, and this document covers topics such as lax and vax, identifying public participants, ideas to engage the public, and links to various resources available online. And I do want to mention all the tools on this page were created through collaborative efforts involving members from community organizations, the Secretary of State's office, and elections officials. And so we're really eager to continue co-creating resources with partners in the future. And we also welcome suggestions from everyone for other materials that might be useful to have on the site as well. And then the last section I want to draw your attention to is our calendar of events. And this calendar will continually be updated with items such as county meetings, deadlines, events, and trainings organized by the public. And so we really welcome you to share your events with us by sending us an email or reaching out to us via the contact form on the website so that we can add more events to the calendar. And again, we also just appreciate any feedback that you have. We really hope that this website can serve as a venue for everyone that's interested in the Voters' Choice Act. And hopefully with this convenient venue, we'll hopefully avoid voter confusion so that every relevant information on the Voters' Choice Act kind of be held in one spot. And lastly, I just want to encourage everyone to sign up for our email list, and you can do that on our website by clicking the Get Involved button at the top and sign up for our listserv, and that's where we're going to be sharing updates, public events, sharing resources, And also feel free to follow us on Twitter, and our handles are up there on that slide. Great. And do you want to take questions now?
Rachel. So our Twitter handle is @VotersChoiceCA and @FutureCAElect for future California elections. So that is one of the resources that Voters Choice California has developed. Essentially, we are a community ready to support each other in successful implementation of the Voters Choice Act. And I had a question that came in, somebody that asked, you know, if 2020 is going to be an optional year for counties to implement the Voters Choice Act, what year is going to be mandatory? And actually, the Voters Choice Act is an optional law. And so counties will have the option to use this new model of voting. They don't have to. And so it'll be the individual choice of the county and their Board of Supervisors to decide whether or not they want to adopt the VCA model of voting. And that, again, goes back to the reason we want to create this coalition of Voters Choice California with your support to ensure that we are providing public education so that people know that there is a new way of voting in their county, or that they know the best way to vote in their county if they're voting at a local polling place. And let me see. So let's continue and open up for questions if people have any at this point about the bill. I'm happy to answer what I can. We can take a few minutes, maybe 2 or 3 questions. All right, no questions coming in. So let's go ahead and continue to our next agenda item, which is where are we in the VCA timeline, in the Voters Choice Act timeline, and then how our community is participating. And we do have Robin Orsini, President of the League of Women Voters, here with us today. But let me take a quick pulse right now. How many of you are in one of the counties that is participating? So you reside in Napa, Nevada, Sacramento, or San Mateo? Great. So a lot of folks are joining because they're interested in this topic, and some of you are in counties that are going to be using this new way of voting, so we can definitely learn from you in the coming weeks and months, and hope that you connect with our network to share with us what you're doing in your communities, and we'd love to be a support to you. So our goal really is that we want voting to be convenient, modern, inclusive, and we want to see those voting participation rates increase, which I think is a goal shared by everybody. And again, here are the counties that are participating. We have San Mateo, Napa, Sacramento, and Nevada, so all Northern California counties. And just briefly, where we are in this timeline of implementation, you know, the counties are all getting ready to implement in 2018 for the June primary, and then again for the general election. And right now, the counties are drafting their election administration plans, and that plan will give the details of how the county will be implementing their vision for this new way of voting under the Voters Choice Act. And there are several criteria that the counties must consider to implement and identify locations for the vote centers and where people can vote in person, and also the ballot drop-off locations. And specifically, there's 14 criteria that must be considered. They have to be, these vote centers and the ballot drop-off locations have to be near public transportation, near historically low vote-by-mail usage, near population centers, near communities that serve language minority groups, and where voters with disabilities may reside. And so there's many more details of criteria that election officials must consider, including near public transportation, near parking that's accessible. And really what we're seeing is that community members are the most informed about these details of their community. And that is why it's so important to engage in providing public input during this election administration plan phase. So as you can see by the highlighted bullet there, we're in the fall. All the counties are currently drafting. They have their plans posted on their website, or will have their plans posted on their website in the coming months. Many of them have had meetings with their communities in the last couple months, and will be opening up for public comment. And many of them will have a forum to do so online. So we have links to all of that information on our website, and happy to share those resources with you again. But this drafting plan of the election administration plans are happening now, and so we're doing voter engagement and outreach to encourage communities to participate. And so I've invited Robin Orsini to join us to share what her experience has been. So Robin, are you on?
Yes, I am.
Great. Thank you so much, Robin, for making time to join us, especially given the unimaginable week Napa County and the community has had. So I really appreciate you making time to share with us your perspectives.
Thank you very much. It's kind of it's actually a pleasure to do this because it's bringing me back a little bit to normal. It's been so crazy here. So.
Yeah. So you've been working, in Napa County with one of our partners, the League of Women Voters of California, who's a member of our coalition. And I'd love to hear from you, how you got engaged, why it is you think it's important to provide public comment in the election administration plan.
Okay, well, we started working collaborative with our Registrar of Voters because we have always worked with him in all of our election activities. And we're a new league, actually, by the way, and so we've done 2 elections with some very aggressive forums and registration drives and so on. So since our primary focus is on elections and voter rights, of course the registrar asked us to participate in looking at the draft election administration plan. And as president, I took the lead on that, and our board has looked at all of the comments. So I've attended meetings. Several of us have attended a number of the registrar's meetings about this, about underserved communities. So, and we'll be continuing to work closely with the registrar through the election year. Why is this important? Because if we start now to understand the Voters' Choice Act and how our county is going to implement it, working with other groups, and a number of other groups are coming in now, we think we can really get our community to work together on the new election plan and understand it and influence our registrar to make this plan something that we can all live with. I'm really quite enthusiastic at this point because I'm getting to know so many other people in the community who are interested in working on this. And we're slowly bringing in people also.
That's really great. And then, as you said, you guys will really truly own this plan and working with your registrar to help define this. So can you share with me, how is it different to participate in this public process versus other types of public participation?
Well, most of the time we receive something from government. There's a housing development or a planning department has a design in mind, and then we respond, we react. This way, we're actually part of the process from the very beginning, and that really changes how we feel about it. We're not just given a set of rules at the end that say, or guidelines that say, okay, this is what it is, live with it. we're reacting too late for much to happen. This way, the registrar is inviting us to help him get it right. And I think it's very important also that we do take this opportunity, because the work we do now really does affect future elections for a long time.
Yeah, great. And what are some ways that your community has helped to kind of engage others to that public participation?
Let's see. Well, wait a minute. Could you ask that again, Astrid? We have another.
Sure. No, just some examples of how your community. You said you're bringing others to the table and you're meeting other people. So how are you inviting them to be part of this?
Well, it's through meeting them through the coalition, the Voters' Choice California. That's one way we're meeting people, because you give us great support. And one of the members of the coalition is the League of Women Voters of California, and this group has given tremendous support to our league. But there are other members of the coalition who give support to other members of the community with their specific focus. So we're really getting to meet a lot of community members, people interested in this part of our government.
Great, thank you.
And we're sharing ideas that we wouldn't otherwise be able to share. I think this website is going to be very helpful in that hopefully we can begin to see some of our comments as we go along.
Yeah, that's great. So one of the reasons I really wanted to invite you to join us on this interview today was to really kind of demystify, right? Because it's really exciting. It's a very brand new way of running elections. As you're saying, community members are involved right at the beginning. So what do community members need to know to participate in providing a comment on their election administration plan?
I don't actually think they need to know much except live in their communities and know their communities, and be a communicator, be able to talk with your neighbors and your groups about what your wishes are and what your needs are. For example, our registrar, again, the registrar has the final word, but I looked at his plan, and it was to put drop boxes in city halls, which makes sense, except that a lot of people don't like to go to City Hall. They're afraid to go there for whatever reason. They don't find it friendly. Some people have never gone to their City Hall, but they always go to their library. And we have a library in every town. So, and libraries tend to be centralized, just like City Halls. So one of our strong suggestions has been to please put the drop boxes in libraries. Now, I don't know if that's going to happen, but we're gaining some consensus on that, and it's because we're communicating as groups together that we're doing that. That's just an example
that's
of the
great.
kinds of things that are happening.
Yeah, and so the way the process works, as I show on this timeline, is that the election official will collect the input and then, may do a revised draft plan. And I think for Napa County, they will be issuing a revised draft plan maybe towards the end of the month, is what I heard, with that community input process.
Yes.
Great.
That's true.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Robin. I really appreciate your perspective. Was there any other, words of wisdom that you wanted to share with us, since you're living history right now and participating in this first ever process?
Just I think it's that you'll find it important and really important for your later work in the election to understand the Voters' Choice Act, and by becoming part of a group that looks at this administration plan and works with the registrar, you're going to be not only more familiar but more stimulated to do the work that elections require.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Robin. I look forward to our continued partnership in the coming weeks and months.
Thank you for letting me share.
Great.
Bye.
Bye. So I wanted to bring Robin on board because, as I mentioned, it really, if you take a pause, it really is a historic experience to redo the way elections are done in California. And the unique feature of the Voters' Choice Act is to have public participation, and this really is going to build what the local plan looks like for each individual county. And there's a couple ways to participate. You can, as I mentioned earlier, the Election Administration Plan outlines the steps a county official's office will take to carry out this new way of voting, and they're considering several criteria to develop that plan and collecting public input. And they will have that input. Some of them have forms online that you could submit. Some of them will have public meetings where you could comment on input. Each county will be doing differently. But what I've heard is that there is a lot of solicitation for recommendations where those vote centers and those ballot drop-off boxes will be located. And as Robin shared, community members really are the experts. You know your community, you know what areas you frequent and what is comfortable and familiar for you and your neighbors, and those are the types of places that we'd want those ballot drop-off boxes and those vote centers to be located. And then a final way to participate is that the bill calls for community advisory committees for language access, and also a community advisory group for access for voters with disabilities. And many counties are forming these or have formed these, and there's opportunities to volunteer to be part of these advisory committees and partner with your election official in knowing how to best serve voters that need language access or voters with disabilities. And your expertise would be welcome and valuable to those efforts. So I'm going to pause there. Are there any questions? Rachel, do you see any questions pop up?
Yes, they're asking if the presentation will be available later.
Yes, we are recording this webinar, and we'll be posting it on our website. So we have your registration information and your email, and if you have signed up with us, we will share that link when it's available.
Someone's also asking if there are size recommendations for the voting center.
So that is a great question. We have on the Voters' Choice California website a very thorough 10-page legal digest of the bill. And in that you will find all of the details of what is required for vote centers and ballot drop-off locations. And I am trying to get to that as I go through it. So the requirement of the number of vote centers is what's in the bill, and it depends on the number of registered voters in your county. That is what is going to help determine the number of vote centers each county has. So smaller counties that have a lower number of registered voters will have a lower number of vote centers, and counties with a higher number of registered voters will have more vote centers. I also want to recommend that you take a look at our FAQ that is also on our website, and there you will also find a lot of detailed information to the more technical aspects of the bill that will be helpful in answering those more detailed questions. Other questions coming in, Rachel?
Yes, they're wondering if mobile voting trailers will be available to rotate among low turnout communities.
Yeah, so that is an excellent question. So as I mentioned right now, counties are developing their election administration plan, and the decision to include a mobile vote center will be dependent on that county. And so if you feel that your community needs that, that would be an important piece of public comment to include and to help your election official identify where a mobile vote center would be needed.
And someone's also asking if there are any updates in relation to Los Angeles County.
So Los Angeles County is going to be implementing in 2020, and that is why we haven't focused on LA County for this conversation. I do know that Dean Logan, the Registrar of Voters for LA County, is developing a process right now. And so that has started in terms of laying down the groundwork, but there is no drafting of their election administration plan yet, since they are not going to be launching it until 2020. but we will have updates for LA County down the line. Any other questions? Great. So let's continue with our agenda. We're now towards the end of our presentation and want to share with you how you can engage with us. And we have Catherine Hazelton. She's with Hazelton Strategies, and Catherine has been supporting Future of California Elections in the launch of this new project, Voters Choice California. So Catherine, are you on?
I am. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Great. Should I go ahead?
Yes, please do.
All right. So one of the distinct pleasures I've had in working with Voters Choice California is helping to roll out the grants program. So Voters Choice California is delighted that our generous partners at the James Irvine Foundation have provided funding that we can make available to organizations who are engaging in this implementation effort by preparing voters and communities for the Voters Choice Act. So we are going to be distributing approximately $270,000 in grants, ranging from $1,000 to $50,000 each. We're encouraging organizations that are rooted in VCA counties to apply. We also welcome applications from organizations that might be located outside of Voters Choice Act counties, but are really engaged in providing resources and expertise and support to local community efforts to educate and engage voters. So organizations may apply for two different kinds of grants. One we've designated as community engagement grants, which can be up to $10,000. The other pool is strategic support grants, which can exceed $10,000. And I'll note that with guidance from the Irvine Foundation, we are aiming to distribute roughly half of the dollars to each pool, which means there likely will be more grants available through the community engagement pool of grants. Although I should note that some strategic support grants are planning to re-grant money to smaller community-based organizations, and those re-grants would be considered as community engagement. So we are prioritizing projects that are likely to increase voter participation in one or more counties that are implementing VCA efforts, specifically in 2018. We could imagine a number of different types of activities that would be supported, and I'm going to share a couple that we included in the application just for illustration purposes, but I really want to be clear that these ideas don't reflect the wide range of potential activities that could be funded. This is just a tiny, tiny slice of ideas of the types of activities that could possibly be funded, but we really encourage and welcome your creativity and your knowledge of your communities and your organization to suggest activities that would work best for you and your community. So a couple of ideas. One, could be hosting community trainings for underrepresented communities, including trainings conducted in another language. Funds could support providing snacks and childcare and making these trainings really accessible to members of underrepresented communities. Funds could also support direct voter outreach. One example we gave is knocking on at least 1,000 doors in our community and discussing with registered voters how to cast a ballot under the Voters' Choice Act. Another example of an activity could be creating memes to distribute via social media and email and text. Those memes could be in multiple languages. They could target different types of communities, different demographics, and we ideally would like to then host these memes on the Voters' Choice Act website and really share them throughout the state and particularly throughout the VCA counties, and allow a wide sector of people to use those materials that you all are creating. Another idea of activities that could be supported with these grants would be conducting meetings with either campaigns or other voter outreach organizations that are going to be directly contacting voters anyway, contacting those folks and educating them about how to talk about VCA, how to talk in their voter outreach materials, how to, what are the right messages and phrases, and what are the, the coordinated messages that everyone is using to talk about how VCA elections are different, so that we're not confusing voters. And that's also particularly important in any communities where there might be an overlap in, let's say, a congressional district that falls both in a VCA county and not a VCA county. It's really important to talk with those doing voter outreach in those communities, so that they know that they need to provide two different sets of messages depending on whether particular voters reside in the county or not. So those are examples of different kinds of activities that the grants could possibly support, and I'm sure you all will have many, many others. I'll also note that we hope that grantees will partner with the VCC through its coalition, so that we all can build off of each other's good work. A few notes about the timeline. The application deadline is coming up this Monday, October 23rd. Applications are going to be reviewed by committees that are comprised of election officials, community-based organizations, funders, researchers, and FOS staff. We're really trying to get a broad perspective, set of perspectives there as these ideas are reviewed. And decisions will be announced by November 21st. We expect that most of the grants will be awarded in November, though we may reserve a small portion of grant dollars for an additional funding round in 2018. So why don't we open up the conversation now to any questions that those on the call may have. And you can submit your questions via the chat feature on the left.
Catherine, just a question that we have coming in to confirm, can counties surrounding the 4 counties participating apply for a grant money to do outreach in the surrounding counties?
So would that outreach be to say that they're not complying with VCA? I suppose you probably don't know that from the question, but I'm going to assume that might be what they mean. If the outreach could, let's say, like if Yolo County organizations wanted to, being between Napa and Sacramento, wanted to let Yolo folks know that they are not participating in VCA. We have not explicitly talked about that, but I think we're totally open to that idea. We also, of course, would welcome organizations in this example in Yolo who might want to do activities within VCA counties too.
And someone's also asking if the grants are only then available for certain counties. I'm assuming the 4 participating, or if there'll be a little bit more flexibility in that sense then.
So there is more flexibility. We anticipate making grants to organizations that are based in those counties for work in those counties. We also anticipate making grants to organizations that are not based in those counties, as most of you on the call are not, but that plan to do work that focuses on the 2018 counties. So if you were, let's say, based in Los Angeles and you wanted to do work that supported effective implementation in Sacramento, that could be supported by these grants. However, if you were in Los Angeles and wanted to do work in Orange County in hopes that Orange County might be part of the 2020 implementation, that's not something that would be considered for these grants.
Great. We also have another question asking, is this grant open to county agencies, for example, a county that's trying to do a PSA?
Initially, the sense, and this comes in part from grant restrictions from our funder. Initially, I think the sense was that the grant dollars would not be able to support requirements that the county already has in statute. But it's interesting to think about a county going above and beyond and wanting to support a project. I think what I would advise would be if a county wanted to apply for funding like that a county partner with a community-based organization and and seek funding, have the community-based organization seek funding to work in partnership with the county on the county's goal.
Great. Any other questions on the grants?
So I'll just say I recognize it's hard to answer all questions about grants in such a short period of time, and that many of them may be very specific to your own organization. So I welcome you to follow up via email after this call, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Great. Thank you so much, Catherine. Great. So let's continue with our presentation, and I did get a couple more questions about the VCA, so I want to answer them right now before I continue. I had a question about Orange County and if Orange County will be adopting the Voters' Choice Act in 2020. And that, again, will be a decision for the Board of Supervisors at that time and the election officials. So they're going to have to go through a process, whatever their process is for the Board of Supervisors to adopt a new model of voting. And so I would encourage you to connect with your election official if that's something that you're interested in moving in Orange County, and also connecting with your Board of Supervisors. The other question I have is about community voting centers, and if these are going to be at the same place as polling places, or will they be replacing the neighborhood polling places in participating counties? So for participating counties, the vote centers, as I mentioned, have to meet several criteria, and where these criteria coincide with the previous locations for polling places, I can imagine that election officials will be using the same ones, but they may be different as well. So I would encourage you to connect with your local county to identify what those locations are. If you have a favorite place that you would like a vote center, the best way to do that is to engage in the process for your election administration plan and provide that public input to make sure that your favorite locations are still available for your community. But as I said, there are a lot of criteria that the election officials must meet for vote centers, and some of the things I didn't mention before is that some of the great features of the vote centers are going to be that voters are going to be able to vote at any vote center throughout the county, so you don't have to go back to your neighborhood to vote. You can vote near your place of work, or if you're doing shopping in your county in another place, you can vote there. So you will not be tied to your residence to vote near there. You'll be able to vote anywhere within your county. Vote centers will have fully accessible voting equipment, and they will also be open for 10 days before Election Day, and of course all day on Election Day, so you'll have many opportunities to go in and vote, and that does include 2 weekends. And finally, in addition to the vote centers, you will be able to access ballot drop-off locations that are going to be convenient and available for voters as well, in addition to, of course, always being able to vote by mail and sending in your ballot through the mail. So those are the ways folks will vote. But again, I encourage you to engage in the election administration plan of your community and provide public comment if there are places that you think really need to be a vote center moving into this new way of voting. So let me pause there and continue with our presentation. In summary, I just want to share that Voters' Choice California, our project for future California elections, we really want to support your community if your community is implementing Voters' Choice Act. We've gone through some of the resources we've developed with our partners, including the Office of the Secretary of State, many election officials. So thank you for those that are on the line and have contributed to those documents. We all share the goal of reducing voter confusion. As we heard, there will be counties adjacent to the counties that are implementing VCA that will keep their polling place voting. And so we want to make sure that voters understand how their county is voting to make sure that they are empowered to cast their vote during election season. So again, just to highlight some of our resources, we have our website, we have our fact sheet and the FAQ, which I talked about. We have a public participation guide for election officials and also a guide for community input that we're developing that will help community members provide that public comment. And we want to know from you, what are resources that you would like to see in your community? And so I want to take a quick pulse, since I have you all on the line, to let me know what kinds of tools would you like to see for your community. And so if you could take a quick poll here. We have our options are templates for community input, sample messages for voters, multimedia materials for voters, education webinars such as this one or on other themes. And we'd love your responses, and that'll help guide how we continue to develop materials, and we'd love to have you as part of our coalition to help us develop these materials as well. All right, so there's 8 of you on the line. A couple more answers. Great. And as my colleagues have shared, we'd love for you to be in touch with us if you have questions about materials, if you want to partner with us, if you want more information about the grants. The deadline, again, is on Monday. And so we want to encourage applications for that, and we try to keep the application process as brief as possible. So thank you for your feedback on that. I have one more question for you all before we conclude this webinar. What should we cover on our next webinar? We would love to provide this as a forum for continued sharing of information. And so let us know, would you like to hear more updates about the counties that are implementing the Voters' Choice Act? Would you like to hear about more resources that are being developed for communities, more resources being developed for the counties, or is there another topic? And if you have an idea for another topic, please do email us. We are at vcc@futureofcaelections.org, and I'll share that email again at our closing slide. Great. All right, we have a couple questions, so we'll go ahead and take them. Go ahead.
Yeah, the first question is if we have any advice for public education and voter engagement in counties that aren't implementing the VCA in 2018, but possibly may in 2020, and if there's just any advice in general on how to increase public confidence in the integrity of vote centers.
Yeah. Great. So I think those are like two different questions, but we do have our public participation guide for election officials, and that is a really comprehensive resource. We have excerpts from that pull out about how to run a great public meeting, the kinds of questions you could ask to solicit great public comment and input. And so those resources have been developed to help guide and provide just another thought, as a thought partner to how community meetings can be conducted, especially because it is a very new process to engage voters in the planning of their elections. But they also may offer ideas for in general about how to run great public meetings as well. So I'd refer you to that document. Again, it's called a Public Participation Guide for Election Officials, and it's on our website, and we will follow up with links to all of the resources we've discussed today.
And folks are also wondering where the grant application is. So that is on our website at www.voterschoice.org. If you click on that tab that says for community leaders and organizers, you'll see that there's a section called Apply for a Grant. And then you can also preview the grant application questions, and it also has the link in that document to the application portal.
Any other questions, Rachel?
Nope.
Great. So let us, we're almost at the top of the hour, and so we really would love for you to join us as part of our coalition. Please sign up for our listserv. You can also sign up to be a member of our coalition on our website, and we will follow up with you and get you plugged in. You can also apply for a grant, and again, we've described some of the ideas, and thank you, Catherine, for that, for some of those brainstorming ideas, but you all are the experts, so please take those only as examples. I'm sure you all have other great ideas for the grants that would benefit communities that are implementing the Voters' Choice Act. Finally, we would encourage community members that are living in the participating counties to join your local effort. And again, if you get in touch with us at Voters' Choice California, we're happy to connect you with the folks that are organizing on the ground. As Robin shared in her experience, she's meeting a lot of groups that are also interested in planning this, and together they're really helping to shape their election administration plan in partnership with their county election official. And I want to also take this opportunity to solicit from you as our community, as our broader community in the election space, to help us identify more volunteers. One of the asks that I've had from various folks in the counties is that the advisory committees on language access and also access for voters with disabilities need additional volunteers. And so if that is an area where you feel that you can support or have colleagues that could support in that space, let us know and we're happy to get you connected with those processes. I also invite you to look at your county's website as well. Many of the counties have a lot of great information on their websites. Sacramento has a tool that overlaps all of the different criteria for mapping in the community, and that's interactive. And really neat to see kind of all of the different considerations for identifying vote centers and ballot drop-off boxes. Finally, we want you to help us share best practices. We know that you are the experts, and we want to be able to promote and help disseminate the best thinking around there for community education and outreach. And finally, we also have a request to help with translation. Elections are for everyone, and we want to help our voters that speak a language other than English, and specifically we've had a request for assistance in translation in Spanish, Chinese, Hindi, Japanese, Khmer, Korean, Tagalog, Thai, and Vietnamese. And so if you would like to volunteer your time to help those efforts, we have plenty of material for translation and would love for you to partner with us on those efforts. So with that, we're at the top of the hour. Any last questions that are coming in, Rachel?
If we need translation for Persian and Farsi, can they reach out to us to assist?
Absolutely, yes, please do. If there's other languages that are not here, but you have that language skill, let us know, and we can see if there's a county that needs your language skills. Any final questions?
No.
Great. So thank you, everybody, for taking an hour of your time to join us today. Please sign up for our coalition by visiting voterschoice.org and hitting the Get Involved button. You can follow us on Voters Choice CA for updates on the coalition's work, or follow us at Future CA Elect for updates on our other body of work for Future of California elections. And again, if you have any questions at all regarding the grant application or other items that might have come up for you today, you can email us. Our email address is vcc@futureofcaelections.org. We look forward to our continued work together in this space and launching what is going to be a historic transition for California in modernizing its election system. So thank you for your partnership, and hopefully we will catch you on the next webinar. Enjoy the rest of your day.